Welcome to the Orange Nerd Show, where we talk about everything except the theme parks. We talk about Star Wars, Marvel, streaming, the studio side of the company, and just the industry in general. Today's topic is more mature content coming to Disney Plus. We're going to dive into it, what the ramifications might be up next. Hey everybody, welcome aboard to another episode of the Orange Nerd Show. I brought a fantastic panel with me today. We have Mr. Vash Sky, host of Freshly Squeezed. How you doing today, Vash?
It's been a good morning. It's been an eventful morning, and I'm really happy to be here. By the way, you can catch me right here at Vash Sky. I'm loving the shout outs, the tweets, everything. It's really nice. And if you want to catch me, it's going to be on the channel you're watching right now, Orange 55 at Freshly Squeezed, your source for juicy news and info, squeezed fresh right from the grove. So that's where you can find me.
Perfect. And Alia down below, great to have you back on board. Welcome to the Orange Nerd Show. Alia, where can everyone at home find you on social media?
Alia Aloha on Twitter, The Bird, tweet. Alia Aloha.
Cool.
Perfect. All right, let's dive into today's topic. So today's topic is Disney Plus gets new parental controls as mature content is added to the streaming service. It says the addition of shows like Daredevil and The Punisher opens the door for more R-rated content to join the streamer. So, Dre, I'm going to start with you. This is interesting. The Netflix, the mature R-rated Netflix shows and content will be coming to Disney Plus. What's going on? Are you down for this? Do you feel like this is a slippery slope? Where are you at with this right now?
No, I think it's what we've been predicting on this show for a while. Between Alia, George, UOG, myself, we've all been kind of thinking that the Disney Plus being branded as something that's family exclusive is an impediment to their business and growth. So the idea that they're going to be adding this content, and we've said before, can you password protect it? Can you kind of put it off into a different box that's only accessible by various users and so forth? Like, you can do this. You can make this work. It just has to be handled carefully, right? And we're seeing the company kind of throw their hat into the ring of an astounding amount of services and products that we never really thought was possible from the Disney company, right? We're getting sports betting and gambling and all this stuff. I mean, the cruise lines famously, even though they could have gambling on them, have never had gambling on them. And now we're getting whole divisions of the company dedicating a large percentage of their business towards these kind of new ventures. So I think the ramifications of this is the Disney company kind of getting into different avenues and into different fields that you might not have expected them to previously.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is interesting. I think this is a step that kind of needs to happen. Look, the streaming war is serious business. And this is really a survival moment for a lot of these studios. They got to get into the streaming war, stake their flag, and really gain that ground. And I think if Disney wants to really compete with Netflix and get those kind of Netflix numbers, they're going to have to make this move. This was a smart move on Disney's part. The parental controls, and like you said, Dre, we talked about this on the show many times. The parental controls are necessary. Obviously, you can't just throw anything on Disney Plus, right?
Yeah.
So to have these parental controls, giving parents the control to sort of block out certain content is fantastic. You know, they can do multiple tiers or however they want to set it up is really great. I think that's the way to go. Yeah. And I think it respects the brand. And I think it also allows for much more growth, which is going to be needed in order to really to go head on with Netflix and even surpass them. Alia, what are your thoughts on this move to put the Marvel, the mature shows on D+, the parental controls? Where are you at with this?
I support it completely. When it was announced that Disney paid to receive them early, I knew something was up. I knew it was going to be Disney Plus, not Hulu. I just had a feeling that they were not going to make a move like that for for Hulu. It was going to be for Disney Plus.
She totally called that, by the way. I'm just going to put it out there on the record. Alia totally called that. I'm telling you guys, if you've been listening to the show, you know what's going to happen.
Thank you. I would put that here and there in comments on Twitter, and people would say, no, it's not happening. It's Hulu. I'm like, they paid for it early. Something's up.
Right. No, she did. You absolutely called it, Alia. You absolutely called it. Now, do you think, Alia, that this is kind of a move that is kind of essential in order for Disney Plus to become a real competitor to Netflix?
Yes, because Netflix is just known to have it all, and Disney Plus, they need to expand their audience, and a part of that are people who are looking for shows that go beyond the stereotype of Disney fare. And they're fans of Disney, but yet they want more, because otherwise they leave Disney Plus for additional streaming content, or they're hesitating to join, or they churn a lot.
Yep.
So Disney Plus needs something more for them to either join or just to keep on versus the constant churning.
And here's the thing with Disney. Disney has this thing, because Disney's heavily rooted in like tradition, and there's a lot of emotion when it comes to Disney. Well, believe me on that. I mean, the fan base and just people in general hold Disney to a much higher standard, and it's much more of an emotional thing. It's tied to like a lot of people's childhoods, right? So whenever Disney makes moves like this, it's very much. It can be controversial, even back when in the 80s, when Michael Eisner was sort of looking to kind of build back the Disney brand, because it was really in bad shape when Michael Eisner took over. He made a lot of controversial moves similar to this one, in regards to more mature content. He acquired Touchstone Pictures, Hollywood Pictures, even Miramax. These studios produced a lot of mature content, and at that time it was very controversial. Disney, this family company, this treasure, how are they gonna manage this? This is so not what they used to do, and at the end of the day it worked out. I think it's all about how you approach it, how you handle it. We've seen comments from Chapek and Disney about how they're going to do this, and I think they're going to handle it in a way that's going to respect the brand. And it's similar. It's akin to how Michael Eisner kind of approached the situation in the 80s. It's absolutely necessary. Like Alia said, that family-friendly content has a ceiling to it. You have to branch out, or you're stuck. You're dead in the water.
No, I agree, and that's why I was kind of excited about the idea that they would be branching out in this way, and potentially putting on maybe like a I don't know, parental settings or so forth, or some kind of way of controlling this access, between kids and adults. As we know, a lot of adults get Disney Plus and then just like hand it off to their kids, and that's the babysitter for a little bit. It's like, okay, well, you gotta control this in some way. But the potential upside is massive. I mean, you could possibly see like Star Wars series or Marvel series get into the more, obviously Marvel with this new Daredevil, they already are getting into the more mature stuff, but you could see that with other franchises and so forth that branch out and want to kind of go ahead and take this leap into this more mature setting via this kind of mature Disney Plus tier, or box. So I think it's really awesome. And with these shows in particular, we've talked about the potential to bring these people into the MCU in a way that they've never really been incorporated before, because it just wasn't under the umbrella. But now, as these are switching, providers essentially, maybe some of that stuff could happen. So it's really cool. Look, it's kind of awesome that a show like The Punisher, which is one of my favorite Marvel characters of all time, and Daredevil are making their way on Disney Plus. It's pretty cool.
Daredevil is a fantastic show. I absolutely love Daredevil. And I really enjoy Jessica Jones too. I love that one. And they're all great. Those Netflix Marvel shows are really, really fantastic. Yeah. I wanted to bring on a question from a friend of the channel related to this topic. And we're going to kind of break it down, because I think he makes some great, he poses a lot of great stuff here. Okay, so this is from @abandonedlizard. He's on Twitter. His name is Alessio. Great guy, friend of the channel. But he submitted a couple questions, and I want to run these past you guys. Number one, could Disney doing this mean Blade will be the first R-rated Disney distributed movie alongside the already confirmed 3 times by Feige, Horn, and Iger to be R-rated Deadpool 3? And could it mean we see some upcoming Disney Plus original content from Marvel like Echo and the soft reboot of Daredevil be rated TVMA? What are your thoughts on that, Dre?
I think that's entirely possible. I think that's entirely possible that these things could make it out in this way. I mean, with the films, it's kind of tough, right? Because there's so many circumstances that you have to kind of that go into a decision like that. It's not just like, you know, when Deadpool came out, right? It was like, okay, should we go into the mature kind of rated R rating or not, right? You know, like let's really think about this. Now it's like, okay, well, if we go rated R, can we still have a theatrical debut? Will it still bring people in there? Apparently families are not wanting to go to the theaters, as we've seen from Encanto, but our mature audience is willing to go to the theaters. You know, do we keep this on Disney Plus? Like, there's a lot to those discussions, right? I think, though, this does open the door to, hey, do we have a Blade or a Deadpool 3 on Disney Plus or theaters, which you wouldn't have that necessarily that option before all this. So you're kind of setting those, you know, you're kind of planting those seeds now and allowing for that kind of flexibility for yourself later. As far as the shows, oh yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And what it does too is it gives Disney more control of the Marvel brand.
Yeah.
Because if Disney were to completely alienate this R-rated content or this TVMA content, right, it would have to depend on things like Netflix or some other entity to kind of distribute that more mature content. But by allowing the mature content onto Disney Plus or Hulu or whatever Disney-owned services, it allows Disney to have 100% control over its own property, which is Marvel, right? So they don't have to depend on another company to distribute that or put it on their platform. They can put it on their own. It gives them much more control over it. It's a really smart idea. So Alessio, absolutely. I think it could mean we can see more original content from Marvel that's more TVMA or R-rated. That's absolutely a possibility. And it's funny too that like when Disney bought Marvel initially, a lot of fans were concerned about like, what does this mean for Marvel? Are they going to Disney-fy Marvel, right?
A lot of people put mouse ears on the Punisher and stuff like that. It's like, you know, because I think it was inconceivable at the time. And I think this speaks to Bob Iger's maybe vision that was a little bit grandeur than Michael Eisner, right? Because Michael Eisner, he had multiple opportunities to buy Marvel because they were in financial ruts for the last, like, I don't know, a couple decades before they were actually acquired by Disney. So he had multiple chances at doing it, and he could just never square it with the Disney brand as it existed at the time, right? As he thought of it being. Then Iger shows up and says, okay, let's take on the Marvel brand, but, you know, let's, you know, if we're going to do a mature audience show, let's put it on Netflix, or let's put it here, let's put it there. And now you're seeing Chapek with an even bigger vision, like, no. We can take in the whole pie, right? We don't have to limit ourselves to, you know, G-rated Marvel or R-rated Marvel, right? We just take the whole thing in there. So I think it's really fascinating how this is how all kind of worked over the last 3 respective CEOs. But Alia, what do you think about this? Are we up base here? Is this accurate?
Well, except for maybe Deadpool 3 and then maybe 2 if they continue Punisher, if the actor agrees to come back, because he seems particular, but you never know with contracts and money, things can talk. But sure. I'm wondering with most of them if there might be 2 versions, R and PG-13 and less.
Okay. So maybe Blade, you have.
I'm wondering if the theatrical will be PG-13.
Right.
The R-rated version will be one available on Disney Plus, maybe day and date, maybe 30 days later, maybe 45 days later. And then you'd have both versions. And then with the shows, for example, some of them too could also have, although Charlie has mentioned with Daredevil, most likely will be PG-13. Who knows though? But maybe there could be two versions. Click here, you can watch the R-rated version. Click here, you can watch the PG-13 rated version.
I swear, to okay, the Deadpool 3 is interesting because they just did Free Guy. You would think that, and they did fulfill their end.
So yeah, that could be two versions too.
Right. So, Jesus. OG, I'm gonna steal your line here. Sure. Alia, you say something every single show that just blows our collective minds. I didn't even think about having two versions and distributing them amongst your just different distribution platforms. That is, oh man. See, this is this is why I bring you on.
Well, they kind of like that. Do that now with like IMAX version, widescreen version. So we could extend them to ratings within Disney Plus.
I absolutely do.
Right. No, exactly. No, exactly. That's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And it even opens Disney up creatively because now they're not like pigeonholed into like, well, it has to be, PG. It can't be R. Now it opens up, like Kevin Feige can go all out with it, right? Like whatever his vision is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the sky is the limit.
You could have you could give it off to a director who might be a little bit edgier, a little bit out there in terms of the jokes, the humor, or the plot points, or whatever's featured there, and then you could literally just edit them two ways. One to as George would say, balls to the walls, right? And then one, you gotta do it. Here we go. Gotta do it. So you could have one like that, right? The balls to the walls version. And then you could have, the studio approved version for, mass distribution via any one of your platforms, whether it be an unrestricted tier of D plus or a theatrical release. It's a brilliant thing. I never thought about it.
It is. It's absolutely brilliant. Let's move on to Alessio's number 2.
Sure.
His number 2 question. It says, and finally, with Chapek making such a move. Now, I got to drop this. Making moves. Chapek making moves.
That's it, man.
Making such a move like this that Iger could never do. Could it mean the Lizzie McGuire revival from Terry Minsky and star Hilary Duff goes back into production for a future release on Disney Plus per Chapek's orders after being canceled by Iger for being too adult aimed and mature? This is fascinating. This is a fascinating question by Alessio. Alia, I'll go to you first. What are your feelings on this Lizzie McGuire revival? It was all over the trades that this was canceled. It was a little too, like Alessio was saying, a little too mature.
Yeah, could you break that down for us too? Because I heard about it, I just didn't follow the story closely.
Yeah, what are your feeling, Alia?
Well, and thank you for the questions, Abandoned Lizard, Alessio. Let's see. With this one, I'm thinking that there's a very strong chance. Now, she was casted in that recent revival. What about? Can't remember the complete title on Hulu. It didn't really completely catch fire in the ratings from what I can see so far with Nielsen. So that might give Disney a little bit of pause. They might wonder, is this more social media? Does it translate to the general audience? Sure. But if the negotiations with Hilary Duff and production and cost and all that proceed well, they might. It's worth a try, worth a shot. Why not? But they might not think it's the full scale. This is the answer to everything, because sometimes social media popularity doesn't translate to general audience popularity.
It's a very good point.
I say it's worth a try.
Now, Dre, I believe you asked me you're not familiar with what was going on with this reboot, right?
I heard about it. I just didn't really follow that. That's a story I just didn't follow as closely as maybe I should have, and maybe our viewers might benefit from a refresher course. I really don't know what happened.
From what I understand, and I'm not too schooled on Lizzie McGuire myself, but from what I understand, the show, the revival was going to deal with a lot of social issues that I guess Disney didn't feel comfortable with.
I think
Is
she
that
got
pretty much?
cheated on. So she's cheated on, and then she moves back in with her mother, I think. So there's just the background with all that, relationship cheating and all that. So
Wasn't she wasn't
dating,
it like a? Okay, so what?
So,
was she like married?
That I don't
No.
remember when I was reading about summaries and all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could kind of. I mean, the other thing too is you gotta worry about kind of classic iconic characters, right? And what people's perception of them, and what they might experience and go through might not be consistent with.
And I know people point to iCarly and its revival, and it handled adult material well. So they're saying, why not you, Disney? But then again, Paramount, what is it? Paramount Plus, they weren't yet on Nielsen. They are now. So again, it's kind of how popular was it? So Disney might be looking at all that, but then again, they might be we want to just get things into production. So why not?
Yeah.
Really,
and I believe with Hilary Duff, there was like kind of like a creative difference between like, I think her and Disney, where it's like, I think Hilary wanted the character to evolve as she got older and become a little more like what Alessia was saying, more adult aimed. And then Disney was hesitant to do that because they were afraid of kind of tarnishing that Lizzie McGuire brand. So that's kind of like the mindset behind it.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. But now that Disney is kind of opening the door, like Alessia was saying, for all this more mature content, that kind of does change things for Lizzie McGuire. I mean, we have a new CEO. We have a new mindset at Disney. It's possible that revival comes back,
Yeah, he might. I mean, JPEG might just be interested in the monetization of it, and if it's okay, if this series develops the way that we might fear it might, then we have another kind of distribution platform via Disney Plus that we can send it out and will be good on both ends, kind of thing. So it does offer this new flexibility for Disney that they've never really seen before. I mean, ever since maybe like Miramax, that kind of stuff, right? Or Touchstone, right? But that was different studios and so forth. But now you're literally your distribution, like your distribution avenue can set all those things up, and you don't have to go through this kind of convoluted studio process to keep all these films and TV shows and all this kind of stuff separate. So it's a really fascinating thing, and it should improve workflow as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is fascinating. It's very fascinating. Look, this whole topic with this mature content and Disney and like even like Lizzie McGuire and kind of maintaining the brand of that character and stuff like that. It's fascinating to me because this has kind of been the balancing act that Disney has kind of been having to balance for decades and decades and decades, of kind of evolving with the times, but maintaining that core kind of that family-friendly branding that it's been known for. So it's that constant struggle for Disney to kind of grow, because you can't stagnate. You have to grow, but at the same time, you don't want to alienate and become an entity that's completely different than what it was founded on. So.
And it's also a product of times, right? Because I think when Michael Eisner was coming up and when he was establishing what the Disney brand looked like in the 1980s and 1990s, you had this kind of millennial generation or whatever kind of growing up, right? Or the kind of the babies from the baby boomer generation growing up, and we saw a lot of companies that we would never expect get into family entertainment at the time. If you've ever been kind of a ride historian, if you go back to like somebody like Theme Park Expedition on YouTube, is a great channel, you could see like Vegas going family and all these other places going family, right? Because they were taking advantage of that emerging family class, right? And so now these people, as they're getting older, right, and are expecting, hey, Nintendo, can we get a shooter or something? I mean, like, as they're expecting more mature and adult content, right, we're seeing that reflected a little bit when it comes to Disney and noticing those trends and kind of changing proportionate to them.
Now, I will say this. I'm really late to this party, but I started binging on Hulu Veronica Mars with with Kristen Bell. Okay. We started binging Veronica Mars, and I think there's 4 seasons. The first 3 seasons were a long time ago, early 2000s. The 4th season is like 2019. There was a huge gap. Mm-hmm. But the thing I've noticed about Veronica Mars, and it's relevant to our conversation today, it's not a Disney show. Well, it's actually now I think it might be. I think Hulu actually ended up buying the rights to Veronica Mars, but it didn't start off that way. But the thing about Veronica Mars, which kind of relates to the Disney Plus conversation, along with Lizzie McGuire, is that I've noticed season 1, Veronica Mars was like in high school. And the scenarios that they put her in are very high school centric. But you notice as the show goes on and as it progresses through the seasons, the subject material gets more and more mature. It matures with the character, So, and I've noticed that, like we're like almost done with season 3, and the situations that she's put in are pretty serious in season 3 compared to like in season 1. There's definitely an arc there. So I think that's kind of like the mindset here with like even like Lizzie McGuire and things like that, is like it's okay to sort of have these characters who were maybe teens at the time, now they're adults, to kind of have their character have that growth and be more mature. And that's a good thing. And I think that they should do that revival and kind of go that Veronica Mars route. I don't know. I've been watching that show lately, and I think that sort of plays to what we're seeing here with Lizzie McGuire. Did you ever see that, Alia, that Veronica Mars show?
Long time ago, and when it was first on, and just it was kind of in the background, or I'd watch it with a friend. I don't really remember specifics too much.
Yeah, it's a great show. I highly recommend it.
Catch me, unfortunately, but I might go back to it.
It's fun. It's a
fun
show.
I still understand the point you're making. I promise.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, it's just basically like the character evolves, and I think that could definitely play to like the Lizzie McGuire thing or any other Disney Channel franchise character or whatever. You can have these revivals now where the character grows and it's a little more mature, and and this opens the door for that. I think it's great.
I never really quite thought of it that way, but you make a good point there. It's if you are a fan of this character, from a certain point, right, and you pick up on that character, you would have matured as a person, as well as the character will have. So it's kind of consistent in that way.
So Iger must have been thinking about new fans, or those that are tweens or younger nowish, and starting it up. I guess he was worried about them versus the original fans that grew with Lizzie McGuire.
Right, probably. Right. And I think that's a mistake, actually.
Yes, I agree.
Because if you're going to have a revival for a show, a big part of that revival is based on the nostalgia. Like that's part of the reason why you're reviving something, because it already has like an audience. Well, that audience is no longer 14 years old. So they have matured. You have to kind of your content now has to mature with it, I think.
And then to attract new audiences, it could be that age group of the established audience that originally grew up with the show, kind of, instead of trying to attract the younger crowd. I mean, they could just kind of latch on and be the extra, but the focal point should be the original fans plus the new fans that are that age group of the original fans, I guess. And then younger people, older people, etc., could just be like, oh, what's this? This looks interesting. But meanwhile, have awareness of what's going on, adults, language, blah, 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 blah. Just so that way parents know, or they can make the decision.
Right, exactly. And actually Frozen kind of did this. Frozen kind of did this.
That's true.
Right? Like Frozen 1, it came out as a huge hit, obviously, a phenomenon. When Frozen 2 came out, though, it was a lot darker. And I think they even mentioned it in the movie, if I'm not mistaken. Like Olaf sings about how you guys are older now or something like that. They acknowledge that the audience that grew up, the fans of that original Frozen film, are older now, and they are more mature, and they are, they see life differently. And I think I think there's value to that. I think that's important sometimes. I think that's kind of cool when you're reviving something.
True. And you got to be. I mean, you got to tread that line carefully, right? Because Frozen 2 maybe wasn't as huge as Frozen 1 was, right? I mean, Frozen 1 was a phenomenon. But
I think it was in the top 10 worldwide. Now it's number 11 and made over $1 billion. So Frozen 2 was huge.
I mean, yes. I'm not saying that it wasn't,
Maybe
but it's like,
billion. I don't know.
we would have known about that.
Okay.
But it's it is one of those things where it's like, you do want to build on that success, but do you are you getting away from that success as well with
right.
That's why number 2 is so tough, right? It's so tough for a lot of reasons, but part of that is the maturity and the maturity of the cast and the creators, but also the audience, and that's a really interesting point there. But Ollie, I was going to ask you, you've alluded to the future of what a move like this might mean, especially when it comes to Hulu integration into Disney Plus and some of the moves they're making there. Can you expand upon those points for our audience?
Well, I will not be surprised if Hulu will. I think Hulu Live makes a lot of money, so that will continue on. And I think to prevent confusion, the rest of Hulu will be enfolded into Disney Plus with an extra tile. They might, I don't know though if they'll keep the name Hulu. They might change it to Star just to have international uniformity with everybody else. That way it's uniform worldwide. But I won't be surprised if it's announced at D23 Expo, and if it starts to become fruition by the end of this year or sometime next year. Universal started to make moves by wanting their items to be on Peacock. So we know that there's conversations and things like that happening behind the scenes. So
do you think that will come with maybe a tiered price? Not only a price increase, but a tiered price?
Well, I mean, yes, because they're doing the ads. The ads are coming, and I think that's to help pay the bill because it's going to cost money to buy that share back from Universal. So they're going to do that ad tier, et cetera. And meanwhile, yes, there's going to be, I'm sure, a price increase. And I won't be surprised if it equals or gets close to that bundle price, maybe slightly less because there might not be an ESPN tile. But if there is, I wouldn't be surprised if it's almost the same cost. But they might have more than one tier. They might say, do you want this tile? Then it's this price. If you want these tiles, it's this price.
Right.
If you don't want any of them, but just the core of Disney Plus, then it's the ad support or it's this price. Who knows?
Like what they've done historically with cable pricing and packages and so on.
Right.
Well,
that's a really interesting
new
thing.
Again.
Hey, and look, Universal, you want to keep your share of Hulu? Hey, we'll give you an extra 20%. We'll split it 50-50. Just give us those theme park rights back. Come on, Chapek, make it happen. Sorry, go ahead.
Make it happen. Yeah, no, that's fascinating, Alia. And that would be interesting too if they rebrand Hulu into Star. And I think that might actually be a smart move, like you said, Alia, to kind of keep that branding consistent.
Worldwide, yeah.
Right. That would be smart. And the Star kind of name kind of fits Disney Plus a little more.
Because of that little plus at the end. It looks like a star a little bit as it flies.
Right. And Disney is very, when you wish upon a star, and it kind of fits that branding a little better, I think, than Hulu. I think that would be the way to go. Absolutely. Rebrand it to Star, have it across the board, the same branding. Add that tile in there, put those parental controls. It's the way to go. It's the way to go. And I think that's the way they're going to do it.
And then you're going to have the Wish tier and the Fantasy tier and the Magic tier. And wait a minute.
You're going to have the Disney Plus, which is its 5 core now, right? The Disney, Pixar, National Geographic, Marvel, Star Wars. Yeah, the 5 core now. And then, so yes, one price for that plus Star. Maybe Hulu. If they get rid of Hulu Live, then it might be Hulu. But I doubt they're going to get rid of Hulu Live. I think they want to keep that. That earns them too much money. So probably, yes, the Core 5 plus Star plus ESPN Plus. The next one, Core 5, Star or ESPN Plus. The next one, the Core 5.
It's the tier system and cable packages, man. I'm telling
ads
you.
At Core 5 with ads, probably.
Right.
Right. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how this all pans out. Now they've added like I think Ollie, you just mentioned with the ad tier, the cheaper tier where you can have ads. If you want to pay a cheaper monthly, you can get ads in your Disney Plus. I think that's interesting. I don't know. That's going to change the game. I think that's going to bring a lot of people on board.
I think so too.
It's worked for Peacock quite a bit. They were kind of one of the first to kind of do that, I think, and they've gained a lot of people because it's kind of a gateway into the service, right? Because you can get people in there for cheap, and then once they get in there and they really like the content, oh man, I'm watching Kenobi and I love it. I'm going to subscribe. I'm going to upgrade my tier, right?
Right.
It's a way to get people in. It's a smart move.
Yeah.
And plus,
go ahead, Ollie. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you. Are you sure?
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Thank you. And also, Disney seemed, the last quarter call, Chapek seemed really nonchalant about the cricket rights in India. Everybody's wondering, why is he not so urgent to keep that? And they're going to bid for it. I have no doubt about that. But they're not going to be, we must get it, because even now the most renowned critics of Chapek at Disney Plus admit, okay, he probably found the fail-safe now with that if they lose that bid with cricket rights in India and all those possible subscribers, the ad support coming up is probably going to just make up for that plus more. So
right, and Chapek is familiar with how ESPN has really gotten into trouble with some of those sports broadcasting rights, right? And it's like, I'm not going to give away the farm. I'm going to have a contingency plan, and that will give me leverage for a better deal on that end.
And I think it's kind of data shows them too. A lot of the subscribers in India will most likely stay because they like Marvel or whatever. They won't necessarily leave just because cricket leaves.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. I was just going to say, with the bundles are kind of hard for maybe some people to wrap their head around rather than a tiered system. So it even makes sense just operationally and just kind of consumer products wise, that kind of familiarity with a system like that. So it's a very fascinating conversation.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you guys so much for coming on today, talking a little D plus mature content. I want to thank you both. I'll start off with you, Vash, to close it out. Where can everybody at home find you on social media?
Yeah, right there. Okay, right there. Okay. You can find me at Vash Sky on Twitter. It's going to be right down there. Love the conversation. Love the DMs. Love the tweets. You guys have been coming up with some great stuff, and it's been a lot of fun. So please keep them coming in. Keep the comments running in. Subscribe, like the video. There's some really, really good stuff. We have some really exciting stuff on the way. I know that for a fact, OJ. You can see me on the channel you're watching right now, Orange55, at Freshly Squeezed, your source for juicy news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. So that is where you can find me.
Perfect. And down below, Alia, where can they find you on social media?
Speaking of that sound, the bird, Twitter, at Alia Aloha.
Perfect. Well, it was great having you both on board talking some streaming D plus with me today. Everyone at home, comment down below with your opinions on everything we talked about. The Marvel mature content coming to D plus, Hulu, Star, Lizzie McGuire, Veronica Mars. Have you guys seen Veronica Mars? I love this show.
Check Cricket rights. Who knew?
Comment down below with all your opinions. We'd love to hear from you. Like, subscribe, and as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day.